What is good, Creative Fam and Ecamm Fam? Welcome back to another episode of the Launch Pad. I'm super excited about this week's episode because it's a little bit different. As you guys can see, we're currently showcasing the episode a little differently than we typically do. And if you happen to have missed the first half, but you're checking out the thumbnail, you're like, hey, wait a minute. I recognize that guy. That's right. I am doing this week's episode with my good friend and co-host of the Uncensored show, Jarrell Peak. But before I bring him up, I did want to talk a little bit about why this episode is so special and so important to me. See, when it comes to creating content for the internet, there's so many reasons for you not to post. But the thing that I love about what Ecamm is doing and what we represent with Uncensored is the fact that when you commit to actually going live, or you create a show and you say, we're going to premiere at this time, no matter what, you do everything you possibly can to make sure that you make that show come to life. And that's exactly what we're doing here today. You know, me and Jarrell have been doing Uncensored for almost 2 years now. We're getting close to wrapping up season 2, which is crazy to think about because we haven't missed an episode. In fact, I think this year, we not only grew the show more than we ever have, but we crossed over 100 episodes, and we celebrated that just a few weeks ago. And it's just so encouraging to build a community and to keep going live. And today I brought Jarrell on so that we can pull back the curtain and we can share everything we have learned, everything we've done wrong, and how we actually bring Uncensored to you guys live. And so I can't wait to bring him on and talk with him about this. But before we do, Ecamm Fam, hit that like button. If you're coming over from the Creative Fam, hit that subscribe button because Ecamm has so much to offer when it comes to just education on not only how to use Ecamm, but how to grow as a creator. That's the whole point of this show, is we are teaching you what we have learned and we're sharing it in real time. And every week I'm bringing on a new guest to do just that. So if you enjoy that kind of content and you want to grow personally as a creator yourself, hit that subscribe button. Hit that like button and make sure you're tuning in every single Monday. We are on episode 3 of the Launchpad, and this is a 8-week season. So make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any episodes. But without further ado, it is time to bring up my good friend, my co-host, and one of the funniest, annoyingly canon-loving, but great human beings, Jarrell Peak. What's good, bro?
What it do, baby? Oh, goodness.
I'm a little nervous for how much canon energy you're going to try to bring, to this show. But we're not here to talk about, well, we're going to talk a little bit about the gear. We can't not talk about the gear.
No building needed. We already out here.
What camera you on right now?
R7. What's that one? Is that another R7?
That camera's not shooting you right now.
Dude, the S12 is the most Canon looking camera. Bro, I'll give props where props is due. That S12 be looking like the most Canon camera I've ever seen.
Well, dude, I'm so excited to be sort of pulling back the curtain when it comes to Uncensored. It's one of my favorite stories. I'll go first, and then I'll ask you what's one of your favorite stories about doing Uncensored. But I'll tell you, one of my favorite things that I don't know if we might have hinted at this. But one of my favorite things about Uncensored is the vibe, like how it's fun and it's exciting. And one of my favorite things is actually one of our biggest, almost flops, where you and I actually shot two or three episodes of Uncensored before we ever went live, before we ever like actually started posting any content, just to make sure that like our chemistry was right and that the vibe was right. And funny enough, like the first 2 episodes I didn't like them. Like I think I told you, I was like, yeah, this doesn't feel fun. Like this just feels like school. And I was like, nah, we need to do something that was more fun. And then we sort of tweaked it and changed it. And obviously it's evolved over years. But I think it's so funny that like while you and I don't always come prepared for every single episode, we do make sure that the vibes are right with every single episode. And that's something that's been a part of our DNA since day one. And so that's probably one of my favorite stories. Well, what's one of yours before we jump into really breaking down Uncensored? What is one of your favorite, like maybe like behind the scenes moments or funny stories when it comes to Uncensored?
Yeah, my answer is going to be similar to yours, but just a little bit different. Like the vibes are good between us, but man, I tell you, we have like a third host of the show. And it's the audience.
Yeah.
Like it's the community. Like it was not overnight where we had 200, 300 people showing up with us. There was many weeks in the beginning where we had 10, 20 people. But the way that we just kind of stuck it out and we've grown the community over this time period, like oftentimes when people get on YouTube, they get drained. They get on Instagram, these different social media platforms, and they like, I got to create, and they just get, burnt out. But honestly, every Friday we get rejuvenated through the people that watch our show. Like the Uncensored, the Creative family is insane.
Yeah, so I would love to hear your take on this, because this is a conversation that you and we've never really like. I mean, we'll sit down and talk about like an episode or talk about like, that moment was pretty funny, but we've never really like sat down and like retroactively like thought about Uncensored as a thing, like we're always just, we're honestly like, oh no, we got to do another show next week. And it's like, did you check the news? No, I didn't check the news. Did you check the news? No, I didn't check the news. Because we're both still working. So when you think back on like those first early like episodes, like you mentioned, we were getting like, maybe 10, 15, 20 people watching. What do you think it was that kept you saying, yeah, I'm going to keep showing up on Fridays for this?
Yeah, what's crazy? Like, I think it's part of my personality to like tinker and to figure things out. And like, I think because like our vibe was good, and even then it was just it was way different back then. But like, you could tell this was like something that had potential. I was always excited to like see if we could like figure it out. And we tried a bunch of different things. We used to bring on guests, we used to play games, and all those things are good. Guests and games have been like good things, but it really was only through time that we were able to tinker enough to figure out what actually works. What does our community want? How can we really grow the show? How could we settle into a familiarity? Like, that's what we needed, And so what really kind of kept me going was that I saw the potential, and we could just continue to tinker until we figured it out. We weren't married to any one specific thing.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. I feel like the thing that kept me going was actually what helped me with the tinkering was, when we set out to do this, whether it was a genius idea or a dumb idea, I don't know, but it definitely worked out in our favor. But we sat down and we were like, we should commit to do this for a year. And like, to think back at that time, because like we've grown way more as friends since even then when we first started. But like the idea that we had like the foresight to think like, oh yeah, let's commit to this for a year. I think for me, it took a lot of the pressure off of saying, okay, this episode has to be amazing. or the next episode has to be even better, because I kind of mentally had already decided, like, okay, we're doing an episode every Friday for a year. So if this episode sucks, no big deal. I know I'm turning back up tomorrow to do it all over again. And it was that like sort of tinkering of like, how can we improve the image quality, or how can we change this? How can we change that? And like, what are all the little things, like what are all the 1% changes we can make episode by episode? Because we knew we had 52 plus episodes to do just in that first year.
Yeah, I feel like Alex Hormozy says it, but like when he started to get on YouTube and like start making content, he was like, I'm not going to see a return on an investment for like 5 years. And like, I feel like it's just so rare, especially for a business entrepreneur type, to literally be like, I'm going to do this for 5 years. And so like, obviously we weren't even that crazy to be like, we're doing Uncensored for 5 years. We're like 1 year. But I do feel like exactly what you said, taking the pressure off of, is this going to work in 1 or 2 episodes or even 3 episodes? Like that pressure being completely gone to like actually try to figure out what is the most optimal episode. And we're not even there now. Like, I feel like we still have the ability to grow and to change and to continue to develop in a way that we deliver something that we love and something that the audience loves, too.
Yeah, I think that's one of my favorite things that we actually talked about when we first started doing Uncensored. Was we said, let's create the show that we want to watch, that we want to make, and then we will hopefully find other people who are interested and who will want to watch it as well, and who will be like us. Because I mean, we've got a, some would say, weird sense of humor. We also are super nerdy about, especially about cameras and tech and all the little nitty gritty. Like, I mean, I try to talk to my wife about some of this stuff, and it's just like her eyes glaze over. She starts falling asleep. Like, it's just not her thing. But for our little community, it's everything. It's the thing that we care about the most, or the thing that we find ourselves like thinking about constantly.
Yeah, bro, I don't even know how to give this as a pro tip, because I'm going to be real with you. Like, you should not try to create content that doesn't come from an overflow of yourself. Like, if you're struggling, like if we decided to make like F1 content, I think we would struggle.
Yeah.
And be like, I don't know enough about F1, and I could research it for a day, and like ultimately we could maybe do 1 or 2 episodes where we could maybe talk somewhat intelligently about F1 cars, but eventually it'd be like, man, this feels like work. It feels like, but because we've picked a topic that we love and we have loved for years, out of our overflow, we're able to talk about it almost endlessly.
Yeah.
But also the other double side of that coin is you also have to, I guess, be willing to consider, how do you fine tune it that you're not so niche that only a handful of people want to listen to you. So I think that it's figuring out that balance, but definitely coming out of the overflow.
Yeah, I think it's you mentioned it at the top of the episode, but that like, we use our audience. I don't know if use is the right word, but like we kind of work with our audience to be that extra host. Like, I remember this year there was an episode where you couldn't be there because you were out of town for work, and I was actually super nervous about doing an episode without you, because I hadn't done one in so long. Even though I make YouTube videos without you all the time, it was like doing an episode of Uncensored just felt so weird. But the audience stepped up as my co-host, and I think that's the other like big reason why you want to build a show for something that's an overflow of you, is because then you're going to attract people that are a lot like you. And if you're going to interact with the audience in real time, you don't want people who are like, if you don't want to make a negative show because it gets views, but then, nobody, like, your audience is negative. So now you're dealing with a situation where, well, you're not happy with the comments or whatever. So now it's like you actually get a chance to like have an audience that's a lot like yourself, and then you can actually, bounce off of the audience. And I think that's one of my favorite things about, it is by far my favorite thing about our entire show is the community that we've actually built.
Oh yeah, 100%. There are so many names and faces that you're like, bro, you were just as much of a part of Uncensored, like Luis and Logan and, oh my gosh, Preston,
Nika.
John,
Yeah.
Nika.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Gary. Like, there's so many of these people that, like, I don't even say this in a bad way, but like, you guys are characters on the show. You're hosts on the show. And I used to be one of those people that used to think that community wasn't necessarily possible online, because I am, kind of talked about this in the last segment, but, like working at a church, I am very into community, like face-to-face, people like knowing you and you breaking bread with people and all sort of different things. But like Uncensored has proved me wrong. We got people that are watching from all around the world. I had a guy reach out to me from France, and like the way that we were talking in the last episode about our creative journeys, this dude had the same journey as us, but in France.
That's so
he was like,
wild.
I got a KX2, and this is the stuff that I shoot. And I'm like going through his Instagram. I'm like, dude, this is so crazy. The way that Uncensored, as silly as it is, how it resonates with people in different countries and different languages. This is wild. So yeah, community is an incredible thing.
Okay, so we love our community. I think that's very clear, and it is at the heart of what we do. But let's jump into some of the practical elements of what it actually takes to run Uncensored on a weekly basis. So what I'll have you do is I'll have you sort of break down sort of like what happens on a Friday, and then I'll actually go ahead and then break down some of like what we do on the back end, like some of the repurposing and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's dope. Yeah, so really what it looks like from us, like we are a camera-based podcast. And so what we're going to do is throughout the week, we're going to really be looking at news drops, and we're also going to be looking at rumors. And we're also going to be developing opinions about those things. I think there are a lot of shows in different things that will just report the facts. Like, the fact is, this camera came out. And while that's fine, like sort of deal, I think your Stephen A's and your Skip Bayless and your Shannon Sharps that have developed opinions about whatever moves happened in their industry, I think that's what had people begin to tune into them throughout the week into their shows. And so for us, it's not just the news that happened, because if we're going to be honest, there's about 30 weeks out of the year where no news comes out.
Nothing. Those are the hardest weeks.
A show is due. A show is due, bro, like regardless. So collect news, collect rumors, and really have our opinions. And here's the crazy part. Like, I like Canon so much. Like, I can look at other different brands and be like, oh, you got a dope camera here. Last episode, I was like, hey, dream camera, Hasselblad, sort of deal.
Yeah.
But in a real way, you cannot shy away from those strong opinions that you have. I feel like the people that are just like bland about whatever, like, oh, that's cool and that's cool. Like, literally coming on and being like, Sony sucks. There are going to be people that are offended right now,
Triggered
and
immediately
triggered. And if you're on a Sony, write it down in the comments. I'm on a little Sony, whatever. Anyway, But it's those things that really kind of drive engagement and conversation. And now you want to share, and I want to share why I think it sucks, and you think canon sucks, and that sort of deal. And so really that's sort of our process of developing an episode, is looking at the news, looking at the rumors, developing opinions. And really we don't do a lot of talking in the week about the show, so that the show feels fresh on Friday. Yeah. We haven't talked these topics to death. We want organic thoughts to come out, and so, yeah.
Yeah, what's actually just a little note on top of that. There are times where we will, because like we said, we do love this, and this is what we do. Like, if we did not do Uncensored, me and Jarrell would still just be having these conversations. Just nobody would be around to hear them. But there have been times where we will be so excited about a piece of news that we'll have to actively stop ourselves from talking about something so we can save it for the show. There have been multiple times where I'm like, let's table this conversation and let's bring it back up on the show. So because everything we say on the show, it's real. And that's one of the reasons why we do it live, is because, I've had opinions that have started off one way on the show, and then through Jarrell or through the chat, I've literally had my idea or my mindset change in real time because of something that somebody said. And so that's one of the reasons why I love doing the show live. But one thing that Jarrell didn't mention is, we do go out of our way to make sure that we have multiple topics to talk about on our show.
Oh, yeah.
And the main reason why we do that is, for one, we think it makes the show more dynamic, because if you don't care about one story, you can stick around. There might be another story that you do care about. Also, a lot of weeks when there is news, there's a lot of news. So naturally, we don't have to choose, what topics are we going to talk about. We just try to cover as many of them as we can in a decent amount of time. But the other big reason why we do it is because it helps a lot when it comes to repurposing. So most people who are watching this right now are not actually going to consume it as it comes out live or even within the first 24 hours. Most of your viewership comes, hours, days, even weeks sometimes after the content comes out. And so one of the things that we found that really helped us out a lot when it came to trying to, grow, we said this at the top, that we never built Uncensored to be the show that people wanted to watch. We built Uncensored to be the show that we wanted, but then we knew it was our job to make sure that we made it easy for people to find. And so one of the ways that we did that was, we know that, trying to commit to a 2-hour-long podcast is a lot. That's a big ask for anybody. But if we could create clips and shorts, that would make it actually a lot easier for people to find the show, and then ultimately realize that, oh, this is a show that was made for me or for them. And so we take the news stories, and then we know that each of those stories could potentially be a clip, which is in our definition is just like a 4 to 15 minute horizontal video that gets uploaded to YouTube. And then we repurpose the content even further and turn it into shorts on YouTube Shorts, which is just a 9:16 vertical. And then thanks to Ecamm, they actually have an integration with Opus clips, but we're able to, we take our content, we throw it into Opus, and we allow that to be able to actually cut our show up into these smaller bite-sized forms of content. So that way people can find it, see the news, see what we're talking about, and then hopefully join us live on a Friday.
Brandon, question for you, because this just made me think of something. I use Opus for my clients. Mm-hmm. When you said Ecamm has an integration into Opus, are you taking the YouTube link and putting it into Opus, or are you connecting Ecamm and Opus in a different way?
Yeah, so it's actually really cool. So within Ecamm, there's actually, when your video is finished, a little screen pops up, and then it asks you, do you want to go view the files? Well, if you click on more options, there's a link that will take you directly to Opus. And the nice thing about that is it takes the recording from what Ecamm recorded, and it takes that and puts it into Opus, which is better than the YouTube link, because YouTube is going to naturally compress the file a little bit, and then Opus is trying to download that version. So this makes sure that you're getting the highest quality version out. Now, there is a more professional way that we do it that goes one step further, but that's the easiest way that you can do it directly from within inside of Ecamm.
Dude, that's actually kind of an upgrade. Because I've literally, like with my clients, like we'll record their live show. I do this with 2 clients. We'll record their live shows, and then I will literally just go into YouTube, grab the link, throw it in an Opus clip, cut it up into 30 different shorts, schedule the shorts for their channels, and then boom, be done. But I've never loved the quality. I just love the ease from Opus, you know, like the actual image quality. And so that's actually dope. I'm gonna use that.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely amazing. And what I can say, at least for when it comes to our show Uncensored, is that through the clips and through the shorts, that is what has grown our live show. It's so funny. Like, while I love the live show, like that is my favorite part of what we do when it comes to putting this show together, that actually that tends to get the smallest amount of return, but it's the most necessary part of what we do, because it's how we create all the clips. And so while when you go live, you tend to have, maybe a few hundred people watching you. It's typically on the VODs or the videos on demand or the clips or the shorts where you're going to see even more viewership. But what's great about this, what's great about like this repurposing format is if somebody really likes a clip, because it's genuinely just a section of the actual full live stream, they are almost guaranteed to also enjoy the full live stream as well. It's not like one of those situations where you find a short form creator and you like their shorts, but then you go watch their YouTube videos and it's kind of like a different format because it's longer. This is one of those unique things where it's like you're getting a 1-for-1. It's almost like, getting a sample at the mall, and like if you actually go order the full plate, it's going to taste exactly the same.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, no, it's been super cool. We've also gone on to Spotify now, and so like that's been really good in terms of, not everybody's a YouTube person, but literally having them be able to actually download it as an official audio deal and listen to it. And so I think all of those things have been super helpful in terms of people discovering us. And man, we did it, I feel like, pretty quickly in terms of growth by using shorts, clips, and Spotify.
Yeah, I don't know if you ever had this experience, especially when you're looking at our shorts or our clips, but like there are some moments where I go, that moment should do pretty well in a clip or in a short. But dude, there are some moments that blow up as far as like shorts or even the clips where I'm like, really? That one is crazy.
Opus got some, like, I feel like the dumber the clip, like the least amount of context, and the more it leaves people wanting or confused, I feel like those clips be doing so fire. Like those 8-10 second clips, where like people will be like, "What camera are y'all talking about?" And they don't realize that, like, literally because Opus picked a part of the clip where it didn't have whatever we were talking about in it, but it was just our reaction to it. It just drove more engagement. So yeah, 100%. There are clips that I'm like, or shorts that I was like, man, this should do great, and it does nothing, and then there's some that you're like, they don't make no sense, but it does well. But it's a numbers game. I think that's probably one of the things that I learned most from you in YouTube is that you have to be a scientist. You have to be a business person. Like oftentimes people create content and they're like, oh my gosh, they didn't like this video. But the moment you're able to turn it into a science project and you're able to put up 30 video ideas or 30 podcasts, or you're able to clip a 2-hour podcast into multiple sections and clips and shorts, now it's just literally math. Like we are going to put 30 pieces of content out per week.
Yeah.
And something's going to do well, and we can learn from that and then make different steering decisions for the next week or for the next season or for the next month to help us with our growth. And so, yeah, I like another just kind of tip for you guys, Ecamm fam, Uncensored fam that's on here. If you're struggling with, like content, blowing up or doing well, it's probably you're not taking enough at bats. You're probably just swinging 1-2 times and being like, I don't know if this is for me. When it's like, really? We're like Babe Ruth. We got the home run record and we got the strikeout record.
Yeah, we definitely probably have more flops than we have successes. But
100%.
But without just posting, you never figure out what actually works, because it's so crazy that like with social media, like you'll know what worked and what didn't work, and the numbers are very clear. That was a 10 out of 10. Do not recommend. But then you every now and again you hit that 1 out of 10 and you're like, oh. And I think for us, the other good thing that came from being able to, post so much repurposed content was we learned a lot from the data. Like we don't like look at the data from a sense of how are we going to manipulate our content in order to grow or to hack the algorithm. But we do look at it as a way to better serve our audience. And so like Jarrell mentioned it earlier, but like one of the things that we did early in the episodes, like in season 1, we did this a lot in season 1, was we would play these games at the end of every single episode. And we noticed that when we did that, our retention just plummeted. People did not care to watch us play games on the internet. But what was funny was we didn't do that as a sense of like, oh, we want to hack retention, but we were like, no, we just want to create a better experience for our viewers. And so like once we took those out, we also realized that, our audience was having a much better time while we were live and they were hanging out with us for a longer period of time. Jarrell, was there anything else like that you can think of that like was something that we maybe changed or that our audience taught us or that we learned from our audience that like made a pretty decent impact in our show overall?
Yeah, I think one thing that we learned, and this definitely took over time, but like thumbnails were so important. And we literally could go back and it's going to sound very typical to me. But one of the things that we found is, when we talk about Canon, okay?
Oh my God.
And we have a Canon camera, a Canon topic, like we saw views really high, which makes sense. They're the market share leader. And so one thing that we began to develop for our thumbnail approach is if we don't have our faces, and specifically your face, with a camera in the thumbnail, we already know we're going to have a low watch video or live stream. We already know. Like, we even struggle with this. I didn't even struggle with this. We literally said for the 100th episode, like, this isn't necessarily for everyone. This is going to be for the people that rock with us, because we put like a birthday cake in the thumbnail. People, when they're on YouTube and they're wondering about what they want to watch for the next 5, 10, 30, 20 minutes, whatever, when they see our two faces and a birthday cake, they ain't clicking on that video. They don't care, like sort of deal. But like the moment we learned over time that it's faces and a camera, like, man, people will click on that. And so like that's things that I think that we picked up over not posting one thumbnail or two thumbnails. We had so many different types of thumbnails for such a long period of time, but we finally came to facing a camera, and then we realized that like that is what we needed, you know, to bring people in.
Yeah, the thing, I mean, to kind of even continue that, the other thing that I think helped out a lot was like, if you look at our channel, and you'll even notice the same thing happens with this show, the thumbnails have a theme, and there's a very strong element of consistency to our thumbnails. You're never gonna be confused on if you're clicking on our live stream or not, because our live streams have like a look, and then our clips have there's like a slight variation to our deal, but it's still, you know, it's still right on brand with us. And I know that initially when we made that switch over to that new deal, it did take a little while for people to like I was like, oh, did we make a mistake because we changed stuff, you know? And I was like, oh, viewership kind of dropped. But what it really happened was just that people just had to understand like, oh, that's what I'm clicking on. Okay, and now that they have that every single week, there's no question. So we have, you know, a very consistent and I would say pretty loyal audience that we get a chance to hang out with every single week. And even when you look at the back end of our analytics, like our returning viewership is extremely high. And I think that's because we give a consistent weekly show. Our packaging is very consistent as well, so we're easy to find. And we keep just iterating on what's working. And I think that's what's best for our audience.
Yeah, and it makes it easy for us too. Like, I don't know if you guys ever run into like a, like, oh my gosh, like have to make another thumbnail, have to think of another concept or an idea, and like figuring out your branding. Like, man, once you figure it out, it kind of releases you a little bit, you know, from not having to reinvent the wheel from week to week. But if you can have some elements that almost stay the same all the time, you do two things, like Brandon said. Like, one, like when somebody, like when I've gone to Guatemala and I see those golden arches, I know what I'm getting, even in a foreign country, you know, like sort of deal. And that's what you almost want to do with your content. You know, people want to know what to expect. But I also feel like that part two is it just helps making things a little bit more manageable. And like, even if you created a thumbnail that isn't the best thumbnail that you'll make, you know, from 2 or 3 years down the road, you'll at least be able to make corrections and tinker from that point, you know, if you run that thumbnail for a while. And so that's what I think, you know, those two things will help you out and create in your creation.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, it's hard to know what's working and what's not working if you're changing everything every time. So if you have a system, you can like take some thumbnail and change your face, or take the same thumbnail and change the object in it, or take the same thumbnail and tweak the colors and see like, but if every single time you're drastically changing everything, it becomes really hard to like learn and iterate. And that's the one thing that I do love about our show, and even with our audience, is that we've been able to like iterate and grow. And like, we've even asked our audience, like, what are their thoughts on our thumbnails? Obviously we're on Ecamm's channel right now, and a few of our amazing creative fan folks are probably rocking with us right now. But it's one of those things where like, you get a chance to grow with your audience, and your audience will actually help you create the best product for them. Because, you know, when you're building a community, it's not just what do you want to do, but it is a cohesive, like, you know, back and forth and a give and take.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Brandon, any other things with the show that we've learned that can help other people, whether they do a podcast or whether they do a live show, any other like secret sauce?
Ooh, you know, I think probably the biggest secret sauce that I have, and you guys get a chance to see it when this show starts, but that is having a pre-show ritual. And I'm not just talking about like your checklist to make sure your lights are on, or your cameras are on, or like those things, because those are obviously important. But like, so one thing that I do before every show, Uncensored, this show, even when I did Anatomy of a Live Stream, which is also here on Ecamm's channel as well. That was my whole show breaking down how to actually start making a live stream show. Is I love having a loading screen and picking music that fits the vibe for the show that we're about to do. Now, typically, I like something with a little bit of bass in it. I want something that's a little dancey, something that gets your energy up, because it helps me get my energy up as well. And so having a pre-show ritual that, you know, that you do, whether you're dancing or you're getting excited or just something that gets you in the mindset to live stream and to engage with an audience, I think is so important. I mean, I think we've all probably been on those Zoom calls where people get in and they're just kind of like, all right, so today we're going to talk about blah, blah, blah. And you're immediately bored off rip. But like getting yourself in the mindset to talk to a camera for an extended period of time, sometimes it's good to have like a routine to do that. So the same way we talked about like, you know, having a routine or having a plan for your thumbnails or for your show, but I think having a pre-show routine helps a lot. And for us, that's typically dancing and starting to interact in the comment section before the show starts. So that way, you know, we can kind of be in the right mindset to have a show go well. Do you have any, Jarrell, that stick out to you?
Yeah. So I think, and this one's going to be hard and maybe the hardest part of your own show or your own podcast. And by no means is it like you have to do this. But man, you can go a lot further with a friend or with a co-host or a guest. Mm-hmm. I can only imagine trying to carry this weight alone. Like if it was just you or if it was just me. Like there's some weeks where, you know, like I might not be super excited or I might not be, you know, ready to like, you know, give it my best or give it my all. I might be tired. You know, stuff may have come up, you know, that's put me in a bad mood. Same with you. There's like weeks where it's just like, man, you've been filming short films and you've been out there and just doing work, you know, working through the night. And now it's like time for showtime. And man, having to carry that burden by yourself, like every Friday would just be so difficult. And so where I would say in there, like obviously there are solo shows, but I would probably bet and guess if you thought about the podcast that you like the most, that you personally watch the most, whether it's Diary of a CEO or the Iced Coffee Hour, or I'm trying to think of different podcasts that I watch, you know, like it's usually co-hosted, and they're usually, well, if they're not co-hosted, they're with a guest. And so oftentimes I will say the secret sauce is in finding a partnership, a friendship, and that's hard because chemistry is so a hard thing to find. But man, if you have chemistry, it can sustain you in a way that like bearing the road alone would be super hard.
Yeah, I would say you definitely, if you can have a co-host, it definitely goes a long way. Obviously, we're biased to that because it has worked out very well for us. But I'll even say, kind of going back to the point I made earlier, if you don't have a co-host, going live and really trying to engage with your audience as much as you can help you out a lot. There's a few, tips that I would give. One of the big ones is, Ecamm does have the ability to live stream and, all the way up into 4K, which is great. However, I have found that live streaming at 1080p and setting the latency to the lowest it can be actually helps out a lot because your audience is almost working with you in real time. And so while, yes, being able to record your stuff in 4K would be nice, because I love that low latency and it allows us to almost be on time with our audience, that goes a really long way. Also, using Ecamm's features like being able to bring up chats on screen and stuff like that goes a long way as well, because there is that element of engagement that others can see, and it drives more engagement. And then, as Jarrell mentioned, if you can't have a full-time co-host, finding interesting guests. And like, when I say finding interesting guests, I don't mean you got to go find somebody famous or you got to go find somebody with a social media following. I mean, quite honestly, before we started Uncensored, Jarrell wasn't doing anything really on social media other than, posting client stuff on Instagram. But I realized that Jarrell was somebody who was easy to talk to for an extended period of time. And so when it came to, bringing him on as a host, what was funny was originally Jarrell was just going to be the guy in the chair, helping me switch cameras, or, because I was bringing on guests, some of my other creator friends who were on YouTube and stuff. And then there were episodes where I didn't have anybody and it was just me and Jarrell talking. And what I found was that, the episodes where me and Jarrell were just riffing and having fun and, just letting that natural chemistry showcase, I was more fulfilled sometimes even in those episodes than trying to bring on a big guest. And so finding people that are your friends, maybe your spouse or maybe just someone that that you enjoy talking to, that can go a really long way into helping you do the show. And then just one last little tip is, I think when we first started the show, it was like an hour, maybe. And then I think the show was like an hour long. And that was because that was as much as we could do. And that was, I think it's really important not to feel obligated to do more than that. But what was funny was we started doing the show for an hour. And then it started slowly sneaking up to like an hour 10, an hour 20. And then I think I remember there was one day where I was like, Jarrell, the show's getting to like an hour and 40 minutes. We need to try to cut it off at exactly 1 hour. And then that week, the show went on for 2 hours, and it has never gone back from 2 hours. Like, it has been 2 hours now. That is the standard for the show. And sometimes we even go further than that for our members. We'll do like a members only stream, like a bonus stream after the stream. But I think it's important to, if you're doing it by yourself or you're bringing on a guest, find good chemistry, whether that's with your audience or with somebody on the show, and then allow the time to be organic and allow that to be natural to what the audience can handle, to what you can handle. And, you always want to leave people wanting more. So you got to break it off before they get tired of you.
Yeah, no, that's really good.
All right, Jarrell. So if you were going to give one final bit of wisdom, one final nugget, or maybe even a word of encouragement to leave people with that are thinking about starting their own show, or maybe they already have started their own show and they're trying to, really just dial it in, what advice would you give?
Yeah, I was kind of thinking about this because, there's a lot of things. We could go super positive and encouraging, but I think I want to take a realist standpoint, and I think I want to give a little bit of encouragement. I think the first thing that you want to do, especially if you've already started, take a real look at your channel, because what we can do is we can be we can put on blinders sometimes and think what I'm creating is something that people want to see. And we don't ever really ask the question, do y'all actually want to see this? And so we can go on a very long path and never really ask the questions, the hard questions that really kind of make us evaluate what are tweaks we could make within our show to make it go from being something that people kind of want to watch or tune in irregularly to then become something that people are like, man, I gotta be there when you drop a new episode. And so I think this is not even just for YouTube or stuff like that. This is true of anything that you do in life, that if you really care about this, if you invested the time, the money, and all sort of stuff, try to figure out, like, what are areas that I can improve upon, if the goal is to get a further reach. And so that's one piece. The second piece, I would say, in the encouragement piece is do not wait until you can get it perfected. Like, you will learn so much along the way. And if you wait until your lighting's perfect or you have the perfect lens and the perfect camera, if you wait till you have the perfect topic and all sorts of different things, man, you ain't never going to hit go. You're never going to hit publish. You're never going to go live. I have literally 2 clients that started at the same time. One has never published a video on YouTube, but has paid me to set up their studio. They still got a subscription to Ecamm. Bro, like, wild work, okay? And then I have another client that's like, and I say this in a real way. They jumped into the pool before they knew how deep it was. I mean, they had episodes where they'd be looking foolish, talking dumb, like stuff that they've since asked me, hey, can you pull this off? You unlist this episode? Yeah. But the difference between those 2 clients is one of them has 50 episodes now in the tank. They have 50. And they know what works, what doesn't work. They know the difference between a good guest and a bad guest. And now they're able to make content that their audience likes, where the other guy is just frozen. And so don't be frozen. Don't wait to perfection. Just kind of jump in, but be willing to evaluate as you go along the way. I think this section's great. I think people would love this. But if people aren't responding, there's a very good chance that, like, maybe you don't need to abandon, but maybe you need to look at it and tweak it in a way that makes it palatable. Kind of like our game situation. Yeah. People aren't responding well to the games. Like, are we so married to the games that we're going to get dinged on retention? So, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's I feel like it's the equation or the equivalent of, like, having an event at your house. And, if the music was killing the vibe, you'd change the music. Like, you wouldn't just tell people to leave your house party. You know what I mean? So I think that's I think your 2 points were fantastic. The only advice I would give, because I loved your advice on, like, just get started, because I know that could be the hardest thing to do sometimes when you're just getting started. But the advice I would give is that imperfection is actually what makes your show great. Like, one of the things that I talked about as when we started our show, as a filmmaker, I'm so used to everything needing to be perfect. The lighting needs to be great. The audio needs to be great. But there's a difference between watching a show on TV and watching a show on YouTube. There's actually a connective tissue. And what's funny is, like, a lot of our biggest, like, one-liners or our funny bits from our show that people quote, they normally come from, like, a mistake. Like, I misspoke, or I said the wrong thing, or I read something wrong, because y'all know I'm dyslexic or whatever. Or we pressed the wrong button and it cuts to the wrong camera. Or the time we thought we muted ourselves, but we weren't really muted. Or the time we thought we were doing a private stream, but we were doing a public stream. It's all these little, like, human mistakes. And especially in a world of AI slop that's, all over the place, I think it is those human mistakes that are going to allow your show to really stand out. So don't be afraid to make those mistakes, and don't think that your show needs to be perfectly polished, because the day that your show looks like a TV show is probably the day that people connect with it the least, because the people don't connect with TV the same way they connect with like a live stream or like an event on the internet. So embrace the imperfections, because they are what make you unique. So that was the last little piece of advice I wanted to give. Jarrell, I wanted to say thank you so much for your time and breaking down some of the behind the scenes of how we put Uncensored together. Guys, it has been such an honor to do this show as well as Uncensored. And if you guys have any questions about Uncensored, or about what we do with it when it comes to bringing our show to life, definitely throw those questions in the comments section. Jarrell, do you have any final words? And please don't be crazy.
I'm gonna give y'all some recommendations. Okay, final words. Go ahead and buy that C50.
Oh, I knew it.
The R5 Mark II is goated. And hopefully sometime this week, we're about to find out how hot that R6 Mark III is. So recommendations, just in case you're looking for a camera, hit those affiliate links. Let me get some of that money.
This is on Ecamm channel. We ain't getting no money, dog.
But yeah, shoot Canon.
Oh my gosh. This is the man I do the show with every single week. Wow, work. Ecamm fam, it has been awesome hanging out with you guys. I love every time we get a chance to get together. Make sure you come back next week. I'll have a new guest. The Launchpad has been so much fun. Hope you guys have been learning stuff every single week, and we will catch you guys in the next episode. Peace out, guys.
Peace.
Station. This is launch control. Crew is locked and ready. Stand by for terminal count. T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4,